John Ogletree. I hope you can see that I'm not Dorsey Mangonia. I'm sitting in for her tonight as Vice President. The Board of Trustees of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District is now convened in a Committee of the Whole meeting on Thursday, August 4, 2016, in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center, 10300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. for the purpose of reviewing that portion of the August 8th, 2016 school board agenda designated as action items and to hear designated reports and recognitions posted in the meeting notice as required by Texas law. No action will be taken at this meeting. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we're here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to the items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. The meeting is open for all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by Section 551.071 to 551.084, inclusive of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on CFTV Channel 16 and CFTV online on the district website. They will be rebroadcast throughout the month on Channel 16 and available as video on demand on the website. For the tape to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize some Boy Scouts that we have with us tonight, working on their citizenship in the Community Merit Badge are Seth McCandless and John McCandless. Seth is a junior at Jersey Village. John is a senior at Jersey Village, as well as Bobby Andrade. I hope I didn't. Yeah, he's an eighth grader at looks like Hamilton. I guess Hamilton Middle School. So we're thankful to have you here tonight. We have one recognition tonight, and we're happy to recognize on the recognitions. The board will recognize students and their coach from Cypress-Fairbanks High School and the students from Cypress Ranch High School for the recent awards in the 2016 UIL State Track and Field Meet and Mr. Ray Cepeda will present it.
I was going to say Ms. Mangoya, but I'll say Dr. Ogletree, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Henry. It is my distinct pleasure to be here tonight representing our athletic department and school district. I can say for the first time as athletic director in front of you, so I'm really proud about that, to present to you a group of athletes and coaches that had outstanding performances at the 2016 UIL State Track Meet. I know it's awful hard to sometimes recognize those students that have had great success at the very end of the school year when we get into the summer and move on, but I thought it was important before we get into the new school year to take the time to publicly recognize those athletes and coaches that performed at such a high level representing Cypher ISD. I'm going to start tonight with the Cypress Springs girls track team coached by Ms. Raquia Gibson, and I'm going to ask that Coach Gibson come up here at this point along with her principal. I'm going to do this a little bit differently, Dr. Cheryl Henry. And I'm going to ask her to receive her certificate at this time. I know that I probably don't need to say this, but over the past 3 years, the Cypress Springs girls track team has really had unparalleled success. They've had 3 top 3 finishes over the past 3 years, 2 second-place finishes and 1 third-place finish. And I can say that while Dr. Henry has been the principal for only 1 of those years, she jumped on the bandwagon pretty quick. And she was up in the stands and was an enthusiastic supporter this year. While her athletes really could not attend tonight, and there's a good reason, they're all competing in the Junior Olympics right now going on in Humble. I did want to publicly recognize each of these students because not only have they represented our school district in such fine fashion, they've really represented our school district even maybe more importantly better off the track. I'm going to start off with the 400-meter relay team of 10th grader Rachel Hall, 11th grader Essence Sample, and seniors Sierra Smith and Samaya Samuels. They ran a 45.31 time in the 400-meter relay, and if you know anything about track, that's getting around the track pretty good. It was a small fraction of a second behind a first-place DeSoto team, but an outstanding performance. The other group that I'd want to recognize is the 1,600-meter relay team of 11th graders Araya Mack, Erica Cormier Jordan, and seniors Sierra Smith and Nikisha Keith. They ran a time of 3.4306, again finishing 1 close second behind the first place finisher. I alluded to this, and I'm just going to say this in closing before I let them sit down. You know, I don't know if you really paid close attention to the leadership conference the other day, but one of our Cypress Springs track parents talked glowingly about the type of comprehensive program that Coach Gibson has put in place to really get the most out of those kids with their education, but also the type of citizens that they are. And Coach, I just want to say to you in front of all these people, we're so appreciative of what you've done with those kids and how you've represented our school district. Thank you so much. I'm now going to transition to Cypress Ranch senior hurdler Brandon Marion. Brandon received a silver medal, and if you could come at this point, Brandon, to receive your certificate. I would ask that as he's coming forward, if Coach Calavo, his head track coach, would stand, and Coach, could you come up here as well to be recognized? Brandon capped really a great senior season by running a fast 37.07 in the 300-meter hurdles, and again with track, that's really what's known as a man's race. It takes a true man to run the 300-meter hurdles. I got here a little bit early, and I was talking to Brandon and asking him what his next step was going to be, and he's going to be enrolling in at Cal Berkeley and running track this fall. And so what an impressive feat. And in talking to him, I said, are your parents nervous about you going to California to go to school? And he says, well, no, my older brother goes to Stanford. So, you know, what a job, Mom and Dad. They're, you know, the type of job that you've done raising your kids. And again, I can think of no finer example of what we really want to be about in our athletic department, to be great athletes, but to be great students as well. So, Brandon, thank you for your accomplishments as a Cypress Ranch athlete, and good luck to you at Cal Berkeley.
Great. I remember my days in track and field.
Red dog track.
Really, third place in state. Really, I was there.
Which state was it? Rhode Island?
What state was it? Let's go to the reports. And the report section of our agenda, the administration will provide a report on our excellent, fine police department, and our presenter will be Chief Alan Bragg.
Dr. Ogletree, members of the board, Dr. Henry, I appreciate this opportunity to be here tonight to give you some information and updates on the police department. And there is a PowerPoint. There we go. We're going to start in the beginning. In 2012, our police department has only been in existence 4 years. We just completed our 4th year of service to our district. We were formed in 2012 by an action of the board that occurred back in 2011. So we're going to start there. And I want you just to take a quick glance at these photos. I'm going to reference them later in the presentation. That top left photo includes a photo in 2012 of what the original building looked like. On the right-hand side, the security officers' patches and the Precinct 4 and the law enforcement car from Precinct 4. Those were the services that we had in place in early 2012. And then the bottom left is a photograph of Gloria Williams, who worked for the district for about 30 years. She was a dispatcher, and that's what our dispatch center looked like at that time. And then on the right side at the bottom is a photograph of our one of our security vehicles and one of our security officers who were also providing services to the district. We hired our command staff in June of 2012. Everybody was on board by that time. Our initial hires included 19 officers, and they started on August 6th of that 2012-13 school year. We still had our contract with Precinct 4, and we continued to use those deputies until we got closer to the end of that first semester of the school year. Constable Hickman at that time, Sheriff Hickman now, he and I had been friends for 25 years, and we worked together as a partnership to worked out a program to where as we hired officers, we would transition officers back to his agency. He couldn't absorb them all of them overnight. So the best thing to do to ensure that no one lost a job was to transition them. As we hired officers, transition his deputies back to him. And we were able to end our contract 2 months early. We ended that contract on the last day of October and saved the district 2 months of services from the contract. That's the year we also purchased our first fleet vehicles, and it was a 46 vehicles as a mixed fleet. That's our first command staff, and I can share with you that the 5 people on the right side of that photo are still with us today. The 2 individuals on the left side is the one on the far left is Lieutenant Benford. He was our lieutenant when we hired him. He was a lieutenant at Houston ISD. He was one of our original command staff members. He left about 2 years later and went back to Houston ISD to be the assistant chief. So he took a significant promotion, and we certainly appreciated all the work he did for us when he was here. Next to him is Mike Schultz, and Mike Schultz left about this time last year to take a chief of police position at LeTourneau University up in the Longview area. So both those individuals have done well, and we certainly enjoyed having them with us during that startup period. You're familiar with these images and items with our patch and our badge and our vehicles. This is our sole mission. I mean, our goal is to maintain a safe and secure environment at our schools and keep our students and staff safe throughout the day and just deliver good professional law enforcement services to students, staff, and our community and our facilities. That's what it's been from day one. That still stands true today. Growth and building occurred in the 2013-14 school year. This is a architectural rendering of what the building was proposed to look like. Not sure where that came from. That's not my slide. There's a rendering there. It's a celebration. That rendering is provided by our architects when it was under design. And that's one of the pictures I wanted to reference in that initial slide that I showed you, what that building looked like before as compared to what it looks like today. This is a late in the process of the building process, an aerial photo that kind of shows you how that site has changed over there on Telge Road. And those 3 portable buildings on the left side were housing our roll call room, our dispatch center, and also the 3rd building back there is where we housed our alarm techs, and they were working out of that corner. So all that's changed and moved around. We're proud of our diversity in our department. We have 76 sworn officers that are peace officers. 55 of those are male and 21 of those are female. We have 22 African Americans, 17 Hispanic, and 37 Caucasian and white. We've got our department divided into some divisions. We have patrol operations, campus operations, investigations. We have our security officers. We still have 7 of those on board with us. We have a communications department, our records, and then property evidence and fleet. Our daily deployment of officers during the school year is 2 officers at each high school, 1 at each middle school. And then we place the remaining officers in patrol zones. We have 3 zones in our district currently. We place those officers out into the zones, and they are the ones who respond to the calls that are not staffed with officers, and those are the officers who go by and check on all the elementary schools during the day. And that they also provide the patrol for us 24/7, 365 on the weekends and non-school days. This is how our district is divided in our 3 zones. We have a north, a east, and a west. That was originally designed that way, and you see the little hook there where we took in Cy Falls and pulled it over into the East District when it's actually on the west side of Highway 6. We did that intentionally because with that design there, that almost exactly balanced out our district so that each zone had the same number of high schools, same number of elementaries, same number of middle schools, so it was easier for us to deploy our officers equally and balanced. With the growth in the west, we will probably redesign those lines for next year, for the next school year, since we only have freshmen at Cy Park this year. And then Bridgeland High School will open next year. Our plan is to design this back and go into a 4-zone district. We'll have a north, a east, and a west, and a south. The most utilized room in our building is this one. This is our roll call and our training room. And it's a meeting room. And this is a photo of all of our officers who were on duty during the unprecedented April flooding. And when all of the flooding was over, well, I guess when we thought it was over, I think we got storms afterwards too. When we kind of had reached the end of that event, we had a department-wide debrief in that room to talk about what went right, what went wrong, what could we do better next time, and how can we be better prepared, and what did we do right, and give them praise for that. We have our complete communication center, and you'll see that list of services that are offered through the communication center. They monitor the burglar alarms. They take all the incoming calls. They dispatch all the officers to calls that they're going to. They monitor the tip line that comes in from students and parents. They monitor that 24 hours a day. And they also send out all the emergency alerts to our staff members, and also through school messenger. They send those out to our officers and to that group of 38 people who get those emergency alerts. That comes from our dispatch center. This is a slide about our campus security officers. I told you we have 7 of those officers remaining out of 22 when we started. And only 5 could be available for that photo this summer, because 2 of them are on 180-day contracts and they don't work in the summertime. These others are 2 60-day contracts. So all those 5 officers were with us. And I included that picture really for one reason, is that when I got here, we found out pretty quickly that those light blue shirts they were wearing, they never did really like the term blue shirts. So even though they're still in blue shirts, we went to a French blue shirt this summer, and we put them in new shirts, a new, more modern shirt, and we also changed the patch on their uniform to say Cypress-Fairbanks ISD Security. Then the mention of the car down there in the bottom. You saw the car in the first slide that had the 7-point star on the door. That after the Deputy Goforth tragedy last August, that star on the door had a very similar appearance to a sheriff's badge. So we were concerned about the safety of our officers, especially since they're not armed. So we decided to take that badge off the door, that emblem, and just replace it with Cy-Fair ISD Security. So that's what the cars look like today. Another division that we have are our security technicians. Juan Cruz heads up that. He's the foreman over that area. He and his team do an awesome job every day keeping our access control operational, our fire alarms, our burglar alarms, electrical systems on the patrol vehicles. That was not something he signed on to do, but with our fleet of vehicles, we have some electronics and technology in those vehicles that he and his team can take care of very quickly. He also helps in the dispatch center when they have things that go wrong in there that need his attention, and then the access control. This is one of my favorite slides because it shows pictures of some of our officers and our staff who are making connections and building relationships with our students and parents. And we preach that, we talk about that almost daily, about how important it is to make those connections with those kids and our administrators and work together as a team. There's an individual story with each one of those. I can't stand here and tell you each one tonight, but those are examples of the difference that some of these officers make on the campus. We are recruiting and hiring the best officers that we can find, and that emblem that you see at the top was a photo taken in front of Cy Ridge High School. And we worked with Leslie Francis on that, and she took that image, and also it's on 38 of our buses. So we have rolling billboards with that image on the back corner panels. And then, of course, those are another example of some of our vehicles. So we are recruiting and hiring the best officers that we can get to fill our positions because we have a unique services that we offer to our students in our district and our staff. And it's not a city environment or a county environment in that type of law enforcement, and we look for those unique people who can deliver what we need every day. Along with that, we learned some good things from human resources. We went to human resources not too long ago and talked to them about when you go out on recruiting trips, how do you attract people? What do you do to better show them what you do? So this, just probably within the last 3 or 4 weeks, we took delivery of these pop-up displays. We have 2 of the table ones and 2 of the end caps. They can be used like that as one single unit at a large presentation. And we take these to the police academies in the area, and we're trying to stretch out a little further, maybe over into the Austin area to the police academies to reach out to get additional candidates. If we have 2 officers going 2 different directions, they'll each take a table display and an end cap, so we can do 2 events on the same day. There's an initiative within the Texas Police Chiefs Association that was started. I think all police officers, especially the young ones, and when we all got into business, we thought we were invincible. I think now we've learned that officers are vincible and not invincible. So Texas Police Chiefs Association started a program of we are vincible, and officers need to slow down, buckle up, stay fit, and wear their body armor. So we pushed this out. They provided us with posters. We have those in our hallways, on our bulletin boards, and we also send us PowerPoints every week, and we can use those in our roll calls to show them about how to keep themselves safe. Current ongoing projects. The 2014-2020 bond was a surprise for me. So didn't know we were going to a bond that quick. Thank you, Stuart. But some of those things fell under our umbrella, and Juan Cruz and I have been attending a lot of facilities meetings, and we are kind of overseeing some of those projects and some of those questions and meetings about the camera and video upgrades, the access control, the district digital radio system. We're at that point to begin to erect those towers. Radios are being delivered to the new digital radios are being delivered to the schools as we speak. They'll remain on that analog component. It's a dual band radio. They'll remain on that component until the towers go live. When the towers go live, programming magic will happen one night, and then the next time everybody turns their radio on, they'll all switch over to digital. And on the digital system, the schools will be able to talk to each other. They'll be able to talk to the police department. The officers will be able to talk to the people who are in a crisis more readily. The fire alarm system upgrades, secure vestibules, and the bullet-resistant glass upgrades. Those are all things that we're providing some assistance on with facilities. We still have our partnership with the Harris County Sheriff's Office for the iWatch program. That app is still out there, the iWatch app, and people can still use that app to report anonymous tips to us if they see something suspicious around our schools. And the key word in there is see something, say something. We participated, and I think we got a reference from a friend of Ms. Hartley, who works at the DEA. The DEA officer contacted me and asked me if we would like to participate in the drug take-back program. It's something they've done for about 10 years, And so we agreed to do it. So on April 30th, 2016, we hosted that at our facility, and we set up a drive-through window for them out in the front parking lot. And the 2 DEA agents were there, and I was there with one of my officers. And people were able to just find those unused, expired drugs in their home. And you'd be surprised, some of the stories that we heard included, I was a caretaker for my parent, and they died 2 months ago, and I've got this sack of morphine still left over, and I don't know what to do with it. So it was no questions asked. It was nothing. No recording, no anything, no questions asked. They got out of the car, they dropped it in the box. The DEA agents never touched it. We never touched it. They sealed it up. They hauled it away and took it to an incinerator at the end of the day. So it was a great service to provide to the community, and we've already been contacted about doing it again in October, and they told us we were one of their largest drop-off sites. I don't know if that's good or bad. But they're not in their house anymore. Another great thing that happened last year about this time, shortly after the tragedy with Deputy Goforth, which was right there close to not too far from our police department, Lampkin Elementary went to Leslie Francis and asked, would it be possible, schools get adopted by businesses, and she went to Leslie Francis, Gail Parker, and asked, can we adopt a department? And she said, well, I don't know, we've never done that before. So she researched it a little bit and then told Gail it'd probably be okay. She wanted to adopt the police department. Their school did. So they showed up one morning at our roll call and brought us a banner and goodies and balloons and treats. And we hung the banner out on the Telge Road fence on our side of the property and put it out there for people that travel to Telge, those hundreds and hundreds of cars every day. They see that Lampkin supports us. And then to reciprocate for them at Christmas time, several of us went over as Christmas elves, and we took her a blue Christmas tree, lighted Christmas tree that she could keep in their office, and the star on the top also has our patch on it. This is a number I don't know that you realize happens every day. The visitor management system in all of our schools, typically only used for during the school day. We had, in the year 2015, we ran the statistics on that, and over almost 640,000 people went through the doors of our school and got those printed badges, those printed IDs. That's a significant thing in itself, is how many badges we actually printed, how many paper labels we printed. But the other part that's significant to think about is how many people go through our doors after we stop using that visitor management system for extracurricular activities. We don't do that at the football games. We don't do it at many things in our district. So I think we could easily probably estimate that we have 1 million people going through our doors over a course of a year, with the people that we don't know about. And some of them go through our doors, and they weren't going to go through it anyway. They're going through windows. So some future ideas and goals. I'm thinking into 2016 will be behind us here shortly. But in 2017 and on to 2019, we really are trying to get us to 1 officer per 1,000 kids. That's a ratio that's pretty standard across the state, and that's what we would like to be at, is 1 per 1,000. The TPCA Best Practices Recognition Program that we're in the middle of right now, and my thanks goes to Lieutenant Sanders and Marnie Sims. They have worked tirelessly on some of those parts of that project. It's 167 best practice policies that the Texas Police Chief Association believes that every agency in this state should follow. And we are in the process of adopting all those. I think Lieutenant Sanders told me he has 13 more to submit for approval. Once we get those submitted and show that we're in compliance with all those components in there, they're planning to come here in probably late September or sometime October, early November, sometime in the fall. Come do a site visit and do an audit, make sure we're doing what we said we're doing. And then if they sign off on all that, we'll be recognized at the Texas Police Chiefs Conference in the Woodlands this year, or in April of 2017, on the stage as a recognized agency in the state of Texas. And another thing to be thinking about for the future is we're probably not too far away from recommending or thinking about maybe having an officer at every elementary school. I mean, we're trying to cover those elementary schools with patrol officers, but our belief and our thought process on that is that the sooner we can make connections with those kids and those parents and whatever resource we can be for them. Some of them are having things happening at home that they want to tell somebody about, and sometimes it's criminal activity that they need to share. So whatever connections we can make and build those bridges and relationships as early as possible. You know, we heard a great presentation from Michelle Gay at the conference this year about what happened at the Sandy Hook school, and it was pretty amazing what they went through. Our 21st century law enforcement challenges. I think every agency in Texas and probably in most parts of the country are having challenges with recruiting and hiring. You get a lot of good applicants. You get a lot of applicants, but by the time you go through the processing and the background checks and the disqualifiers, sometimes you don't end up with as many to hire as you want. And probably everybody in the Houston area has openings. I see ads all the time about the competitive salaries and things. And some of it probably has a little bit to do with some of the unfavorable press events. Some people may be thinking this is not a great time to be a police officer, not as attractive as it used to be when Paul was working. But, and then also there's that feeling out there that officers could become targets. And so those are a few of the challenges. Probably don't need to remind you about all of our numbers. Those are our contact numbers. That the number there is the one in red is the one that's on the back of all of our police cars, on the back quarter panels of every vehicle we own. It's the CFPD number. That's emergencies in progress. Our contact number for our dispatchers is the same as it's been for about 20 years, that 4337 number. And the 2865 number is the line that comes into our police administration area. And if you need to talk to a supervisor or somebody, that's the place to go. And lastly, this is the next to the last slide. And we are on Twitter, thanks to Nicole Ray. Where'd she go? Nicole Ray and Stephanie Meagle and Joel Weckerly. They talked to me probably 8 months ago. Chief, you got to get on Twitter. You got to use your department on Twitter. I said, I don't know about that. I may not be a Twitter guy. I never had a Twitter account. So I resisted them for a little while. I hid from them once. But they tricked me, and they showed up at my office one day, and Stephanie and Joel came in and brought 2 chairs in and put one on each side of me at my desk and said, we're going to set up your Twitter account. And then they walked out, showed me how to do it, and then they walked away. So I have become a Twitter guy for the department, and here are some of our, probably our some of our eight of our favorite slides. We try to mix it up out there on the Twitter page. We've got the, right before holidays, we try to put something out there about driving impaired and DWIs. We've got school safety things that we put out. The second picture up there on the top is a picture of Burl Jones. He just retired June 30th. He worked for us for 4 years. He was one of our original officers. Worked for us for 4 years, so he's only in law enforcement 4 years, but he spent 24 years at Houston ISD in a civilian role as a substance abuse monitor. When he decided at age 51 he wanted to be a police officer, he went through the police academy, and I was his first chief, so I was the first guy to hire him, and he did a great job for us. He was the officer over at Hamilton Middle School, so we're not sure. He won't be there this year, and they're not too happy about that because they're going to miss him, but he did a great job for us. So we had a retirement celebration for him. And the third picture there is one of our officers at Langham Creek. She traveled with the team when they were in the state playoffs with the baseball team, and that was one of their super fans, and she was talking to him and encouraging him and making a difference for him. The picture up on the top right is Officer Jernigan, and she does a great job for us too. And this wasn't a photo we took. This was sent to us by a staff member, and it says that sometimes the best thing that our police officers can do for the kids is TLC. So that kid was in a little crisis, and I think she just picked him up and gave him a hug. So two of our officers at graduation down in the bottom left, Postma brought us trays and trays full of decorated iced cookies one day. They did not last long. And then a school safety one. And the one on the bottom right is a photograph that Joel put together for us on the Deputy Go Forth event. And there's 4 photos there that got a lot of likes and retweets. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have about the department or our services or anything else that I can do for you.
Thank you, Chief Bragg, for that very inspiring report. You all, any of the board members have any questions? Yes, Ms.
Chief Bragg, does the district provide the body armor for the officers, or do they have to purchase it at their expense?
Well, body armor has always been a very personal item to an officer. Some officers like certain brands, some like certain resistance levels, some like certain, it's just very personal, just like a handgun is. Officers like to carry what they want to carry and what they're used to carrying. Before the Deputy Goforth incident, officers were furnishing their own body armor. But after that incident, as things began to unfold and other incidents began to happen, we talked about, Dr. Henry and I talked about getting officers their own body armor and making it a mandatory wear. So that happened in probably October of last year, and we ordered them very quickly, got them within about 60 days, issued them to all the officers, and they're issued to them. They turn them in when they leave if they go somewhere else, but it is issued by the district now. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Bob, Don?
Chief, first off, I just want to thank you guys. You do a great job, and I'm speaking not just as a board member, but as a community member and as a parent. So I sincerely appreciate y'all. You mentioned getting our ratio from 1 to 1,000. Do you know what it is now?
Well, we have 76 sworn officers, and we have 7 security officers. So we have 83 people that we can deploy each day right now. We've got positions already on the manning table to fill. We've got about 22 more to fill, and we're heavily every day looking for candidates and trying to hire people.
And then on the
That'll get us to about 110 officers.
a majority of the officers that we hire experienced officers or from an academy, or is it just a varying combo there?
It's a pretty good mix. We've hired officers who are retired Houston police officers. We've hired officers who came to our district with 30 years of service or 20 years of service, and we've hired officers who are fresh out of the academy. The good part for us in hiring an officer with a significant level of experience, the field training program piece of that is shorter for them. We can put them through a field training, just get them acclimated to how we do things and our report system and all the components that we do and what we do every day. We can do that pretty quickly with them in about a 4 to 6 week period. If we get somebody fresh out of a police academy and they've never been in law enforcement before, it can be anywhere from, depending on their age and depending on their previous training, it could be anywhere from 12 to 16 or 18 weeks. And we put them with somebody during that time, and they're training them that whole time until they sign off on it and say they're ready to be on their own.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, John.
Bob?
I'd echo what Don said, Chief, and y'all are doing an amazing job. I'd like to also compliment you on what you did during graduation, which was phenomenal. You handled that with such ease. And I can think back to our graduations where we were using somebody else, and y'all just did such a phenomenal job. So thank you so much for that. I did have a question because this came up through TASB, and we have questions that are posed from all over the state every once in a while about what we're doing, what anyone's doing. And one of the questions that came up was the active shooter situation. Do you go through some kind of training? What are we doing with that? And I will say that I've been in some of our schools when there's been a lockdown for whatever reason it was, and I was very impressed with how quickly the teachers and the students reacted with very little overexcitement. So anyway.
Yeah, our plan for the active shooter training, and we started in 2012. In the summer of 2013, every officer in our department who had never been through the training went through active shooter training. So every officer we had on the payroll during the summer of 2013 went through the active shooter training. We did it across the street at Cypress-Fairbanks High School. Thanks, Mike. And so we did that summer, and then the next year in 2014, everybody that had been hired since that time who had never been through the training went through it in 2014, and then in 2015, the same thing occurred. As soon as those new hires came on board, the next summer, they went through the active shooter training. And then there's also, after 2 years, a retraining. So we'd also make the people that had done it 2 years ago go through it again. So, and there's also a couple of other levels. There's level 1, 2, and 3. So we're keeping them current on that.
And one final thing, I don't think I've met one of your officers that wasn't nice and easy to talk to, and so it's awesome to see that kind of personality dealing with our kids. Thank you.
Well, we work hard to filter out those people, so those are the ones we get to hire. So we work hard at that.
Anyone? Tom?
First, a couple of comments. Chief, definitely a tip of the hat. You have done a remarkable job in a very short period of time in bringing about this program. I would also like to tip the hat to the 3 senior board members who 2011 approved what you were doing despite political voices in Austin suggesting that this was not the appropriate step. I was at that board meeting, and I remember when CFO Snow, in response to a question, said we were not doing this to save money, but to enhance safety for our students. So that brings me to the first question. Certainly, you pointed out that we've spent bond dollars to enhance safety. You've created your department. You're constantly looking to upgrade in terms of training. But whose responsibility is it to keep our students safe?
Well, safety is everybody's responsibility when it comes, especially when it comes to kids. I mean, when the community sees something not right and something happening with a child or with a teenager, goes back to that. If you see something, you should say something. So it's everybody's responsibility to help keep our students and our community safe. And the sooner that people report things, the sooner we can respond to it. And the sooner we respond to it, the sooner we can fix it.
I would also give you accolades for venturing forth on your Vincible concept. As you know, I had a close encounter of the worst kind in that regard, and so I appreciate your officers being on heightened awareness, not only for the safety of our students and staff, but also for their own safety. Are we doing anything to spread the message of active intruder or enhanced safety, say, for the education of our administrators? Did we do anything at the recent leadership?
Well, we had a great keynote speaker there on the first day, and then we had some breakout sessions, and one of those was former chief of police from the city of Houston, and his topic was how the public safety is a community responsibility. And it goes back to your other question about whose job is it to keep people safe, and it's a community responsibility. And so we had that, and we also had the speaker with Terry Abbott, and he was there to talk about inappropriate relationships with students and teachers. And so those are great 3 topics, and Casey Davis is now our new emergency management coordinator, and he's putting together a lot of programs and training for staff and drills that comes out of the student services side, and we are willing to help and participate with that, and but he's designing and getting some things together to make sure those things happen.
Thank you. And of course, at National, you and PBK presented many of these same concepts to trustees and superintendents from around the country itself, and I appreciate that. One point that you did not mention that I would like to go ahead and highlight, a principal of one of our campuses remarked to me that part of the academic improvements that occurred on that campus were in fact attributable to the presence of 2 of your officers that you had assigned to that campus. And of course, you had one of the photos of one of the officers up there along with a program that he and another officer designed that had a significant impact. So I would remind the viewing public that your presence not only creates safety, but interestingly enough, it enhances academic achievement of our students, which means that your presence is part of the core activity of this district. But thanks again, Chief.
Well,
Appreciate
we
it.
hope if they feel safe, they'll come to school and feel safe and be able to do their work.
Chief, just a few things. Would you say that what you're doing in your operation is like community policing on the micro level, your relationship with the staff and students in our schools?
I'd probably call it Cyfair ISD community policing, because we focus all of our efforts as much as we can on our Cyfair ISD students and our staff and our schools and our properties. There's things that happen around us that sometimes we don't even know about, but there's also things that happen around us that we get pulled into. Getting flagged down by someone, which happened just recently. Officer was flagged down, said that car going there, the guy just pointed a gun at me. And so one of our officers drove down there, detained the guy, and he had a gun in the car and also had some other things that shouldn't have been there. So.
One of the moves across the country is for officers to have body cameras. Is there, do you see any such need in what your officers do?
There's probably a need for those because they will, if an officer makes a bad decision, we have the evidence to do what we have to do to probably remove that officer. It also can exonerate the officer against claims that were untrue. So there's good sides and bad sides to that. It is not a cheap project. At our every 2-year training I have to go to as a police chief, I attended that training the first week of February, and one of the presenters there for a couple of hours one morning was talking about body cameras and the different technologies and the different types of cameras and all the things to consider. And he recommended that if we're thinking about doing body cameras, he said you need to probably plan on somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per officer, because that's for the camera itself and the equipment attaches to your uniform, the server space, the uploading, and the management of all the video, and it has to match the same standard as your in-car video. It has to keep it for 90 days. So there's a significant cost in it, but there are times where that camera would have sure been nice to say that never happened, or it did happen the way that it was claimed, and there's some evidence.
You showed the slide where the HR department has helped you with recruiting. How competitive are we with salaries?
We're very competitive. Last year, we implemented some additional stipends to help our hiring and our recruitment. We added some stipends in there for equipment that the district doesn't furnish. We put an equipment stipend in there. We put in a stipend for education. We had never paid anybody for having degrees or education. So HR helped us through a lot of that last year.
Our church also participated in the DEA program of bringing the drugs back. I don't know if it's because it was on our campus. We didn't have a great overflow. And I wasn't there, so I wasn't going to look at anything. But
That could be a good thing.
glad to see you all participated in that. And I must say, it's what Bob said about your officers. I personally had experience with one. It was a very embarrassing experience. I was glad my wife wasn't with me. I was on West Road rushing to get to the Berry Center, and I ran out of gas. I was not paying attention, and I stacked traffic up like crazy, and one of your officers helped me to get
Well, good.
across. So,
Third place in track.
you know.
And one of the tweets that I didn't include, and Ms. Hartley, I think, knows about this one, there was a tweet out there that I didn't send out, but it was sent out by the Fairfield community. Somebody had a picture and a tweet that a car was broken down on the side of the road, and a lady was there, and they had a photo of 2 of our officers pushing it over into a gas station. So,
Well,
whatever we can do.
thank you for all you do.
All right. Whatever it takes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now go to our action items, the consensus 5A. The board will consider approving the tax refunds of $500 or greater for Cypress-Fairbanks ISD. Is there any question dealing with that item? Okay. All right. Action 5B, the board will consider approving the minutes of the June 27, 2016 meeting. Any questions? That stays on consensus. All right. Action items, non-consensus. Action item 6A, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and/or authorizing purchase orders as recommended on the posted agenda item. These are, number one, beverages for food, and number two, laboratory specimens. Any question of Matt Morgan on that? Can we move that to consensus? Item 6B, the board will consider approving the agreement of the purchase of attendance credits, netting Chapter 42 funding pursuant to Texas Education Code, TEC, Chapter 41 for the 2016-2017 school year. Stuart, would you give us a presentation?
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree, members of the board, and Dr. Henry. As I explained in my letter to the Board of Trustees, we have received official notification from TEA that for fiscal year 2016-17, we will be a Chapter 41 school district. Under the current school finance system, what's referred to as Robin Hood, Cyfair ISD has previously been classified as a property poor school district under the Texas Education Code, Chapter 42, which benefits, we did under Chapter 42 benefit from property wealthy school districts that are under Chapter 41, and those districts send recapture money to the state to be distributed to the various property poor districts in the equalization formulas. Whether a school district is funded according to Texas Education Code Chapter 41 or 42 is determined by the amount of its property value per student in weighted average daily attendance. Chapter 41 school districts are those with property values per weighted average daily attendance, or WADA. I'll refer to it as WADA. Those Chapter 41 districts have property values per WADA that are greater than or equal to the amount that's set in statute as $319,500. This amount is referred to as the equalized wealth level, and for 2016-17 CFISD, property wealth per student is projected to be $336,065 above the statutory limit of $319,500. The reason why we are now considered for 16-17 a Chapter 41 district is that over the last several years, the rate of our property value growth has exceeded the rate of our student enrollment growth. School districts whose wealth per WADA exceeds the equalized wealth level are required to reduce its equalized wealth level, or its wealth per WADA, by the amount that's necessary to bring that amount down to the equalized wealth level using one or more of the 5 statutory options that are available in Chapter 41 of the Texas Education Code. Those options are, option 1 is to consolidate with another school district. Option 2 is to detach property. Option 3 is to purchase average daily attendance credits from the state. Option 4 is to contract to educate non-resident students from a partner district. And option 5 is a tax-based consolidation with another district. Currently, nearly all Chapter 41 districts have selected either option 3 or option 4 or a combination of both. Current statutes provide for 3 equalized wealth levels. Level 1 is currently set in statute at $514,000 per WADA, which is equivalent to the yield provided by the basic allotment as defined in Chapter 42 of the Texas Education Code. Level 2 allows property wealthy districts to retain tax revenue on the equivalent tax rate or tax effort raised by the Austin ISD on the first 6 pennies above its compressed rate. And then level 3 is set in statute at the $319,500 per WADA and applies to any tax rate that exceeds the district's compressed tax rate plus 6 cents. Districts with wealth per student that exceeds the $514,000 equalized wealth level are subject to recapture, meaning that they actually write a check to the state to purchase attendance credits. If it's these districts whose payments to the state are distributed to the property poor districts, such as CFISD in the past, Chapter 42 districts under the current school finance system. School districts such as Cypress-Fairbanks with wealth per student between the $319,500 and the $514,000 do not pay recapture unless their tax rate, their adopted M&O tax rate, exceeds their compressed tax rate plus 6 cents. Since our adopted M&O tax rate is $1.04, it's comprised of our compressed tax rate of $1 plus the additional 4 cents. And any tax rate in excess of $1.04 requires an election of the community to approve that. Certainly, because our tax rate is $1.04 and for the foreseeable future, we do not expect that rate to increase, certainly not above the $1.06. We will not be subject to recapture for 2016, 17, or any future year unless we do adopt an M&O tax rate that's in excess of $1.06. We will still be, even though we will not pay recapture, we will still be considered a Chapter 41 district, and as such, we will be required to inform TEA of our Chapter 41 option that we choose, that we intend to exercise in order to reduce our wealth per student down to the $319,000 level. We have to do that. We have to inform TEA of that in the event that our equalized wealth level at any time in the future exceeds the $514,000 per student, or if we adopt an M&O tax rate in excess of $1.06 in the future. According to Chapter 41, the Texas Education Code, we are not able to adopt a tax rate for 2016-17 until the Commissioner of Education has certified the district's intent selection form indicating which option we choose to reduce our equalized wealth level down to the $319,500 level. So let me say again that even though we will be considered a Chapter 41 district in 16-17, it will have no impact or effect on our budget or our financial position. The only impact to us is that we must notify TEA of our option selection in the event that we do adopt a 2016-17 tax rate greater than $1.06, which we are not planning to do. So at this time, I recommend that we choose option 3, which is the purchase of average daily attendance credits from the state. And as such, if you agree and approve that, the Board of Trustees is required to approve an agreement for the purchase of attendance credits, which is netted against Chapter 42 funding. And I believe that agreement is, a copy of that agreement is included in your board book. So the due date for notifying TEA of our intended selection option is September 1st, 2016. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
I can't tell you that I totally understand everything you just said, so, although I understand what you're saying, but I guess that the really strange thing is I know our students are right at the 50% economically disadvantaged. Is that correct? 49%?
That's correct. Mhm.
And yet we're gonna be considered a property wealthy. Do you think that the 99 is going to push us on up to that 515? Do you see that as possible?
No, I've
happening?
actually done some calculations on that, and the only way that we could reach that $514,000 level is if our current property tax base would increase almost 60% at this point in time. Currently, our tax base is about $47.5 billion. It would have to reach up to about $74 billion to be able to put us in a place that we would be at the $514,000 level.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Stuart, would you go through just the basics? How does this actually, because you said option 3, that is purchasing. Is it actually a purchase where we write a check? Would you explain what actually happens?
Good question. No, sir. Again, it's an action that we must take because of our Chapter 41 designation, that we have to decide if at any point in time during the year we would reach the $514,000 level, or we adopt a tax rate for 16-17 that was $1.06 or more. We have to do that every year. In fact, TEA notifies those Chapter 41 districts each year of their status, and each year those districts have to notify TEA of what their option selection is going to be. And the reason they do that is that the Commissioner of Education must know this action takes place generally before any district levies or adopts a tax rate for that current fiscal year. And so these things have to be in place in order for them to know at a later date when the districts adopt a tax rate whether they will put themselves in a recapture position at all. So again, it's something that we have to do. It's we will not be writing a check to the state. As a matter of fact, if everything being equal, our tax base at the current level, our projected WADA, if we did adopt a tax rate, which is probably going to be in October, if we did adopt a tax rate of say $1.07, first of all, that would require an election by the community. And if that election was successful, we did adopt a tax rate in excess of $1.06, the amount of recapture that we would probably have to pay for 16-17 is calculated to be about $400,000. So it's, in the scheme of things, it's not a huge amount of money, although $400,000 is a pretty good chunk. But when we're looking at a $900 million operating budget, it's not that great. So not a significant thing. And again, it's just a formality that we have to take in notifying the state, and then approving this agreement to purchase, and that's what that agreement is called, the purchase of attendance credits, and that's the option that I would recommend that we take, because we would not want to detach property. We would not want to consolidate our tax base with another district. I don't believe that we would want to consolidate our operations with another district. And then the other option would be to contract to educate non-resident students from another district. So I think the logical option for us would be just to do the formality, send in the paperwork for the purchase of the average daily attendance credits.
All right,
I hope that answered your question.
Can we move this to consensus?
I think I'd like it to stand
You
alone.
want to see?
Could I make one comment? Just to clarify something Stuart said, I just want the public to be clear. We're not planning on recommending to the board that you call a tax ratification election, so I
No.
just want to make that clear.
Right, right.
Item 6C, the board will consider approving on first reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies. Number 1, DGBA, local personnel management relations, employee constraints, grievances, revise. 2, FDB, local admissions, intra-district transfers, and classroom assignments, revise. 3, FNG, local student rights and responsibilities, student and parent complaints, grievances, revise. Can we move that to consensus? Yes, okay, all right. 6D, the board will consider approving on second reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies. 1, BE local board meetings, revise. 2, CKE local safety program risk management, security personnel, revise. 3, DNA local performance appraisal evaluation of teachers, revise. 4, FFAC local wellness and health services, medical treatment, revise. Can we move that to consensus? 6E, the board will consider approving the 2016-2017 Cypress-Fairbanks ISD Student Code of Conduct. Do we have, that's been tendered to us, do we have any questions for Ms. Cooper, Mr. Campbell, or Ms. Obumake?
Just one.
One. Who's gonna answer the questions tonight? Okay.
It's a sharp question, and I kind of like to bring it up each time. So we've got a new student handbook, and used to, they had to sign it and turn a page back in saying that they had read it, but I believe we do that electronically now. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ogletree, members of the board, and Dr. Henry. Yes, it's an acknowledgement form that is signed electronically. There's a report that campuses can actually pull to determine which students have not signed that acknowledgement form, and then they rectify that by pulling those students in and contacting the parents to ensure that they've received the code of conduct.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, did we have to add anything for Pokemon Go? No, we have not yet. Okay, all right, just checking. Everybody's able to play. No.
Tom. All right, Tom.
We have added a section on bullying. When you print the booklet up, are you going to draw attention to that for parents to look at it, since that's a change and since they may have already have students in school, and even though they get another booklet, they may not think to look at it?
Right. That portion is included on our change page in the code of conduct, as you've referenced, and that's included at the very front. In addition to that, our campuses provide student code of conduct reviews each year to every student on campus, and those highlighted changes are reviewed in those as well as in parent meetings.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further questions? Can we move this item to consensus? All right. 6F, the board will consider approving the memorandum of understanding between Harris County Juvenile Board and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to participate in the JJAEP for the year 2016 to 2017. Any questions? This is a standard agreement that we have. To consensus. 6G, the board will consider the endorsement of candidacy for Georgianne Rittemeyer of Klein ISD, position 4A on the TASB Board of Directors.
Yeah, you want me to say anything now, or we do that Monday? What do we do?
Any, it says questions, so I guess
Just
he can say something, can't he?
I mean, just, let
Yeah,
you,
go ahead.
you know, Ron Cryer at Spring lost his election back in November, and so that position has been open, and Georgianne filled in to finish off his year, and now she has to run again for a 3-year term. And Georgianne is extremely active in our region, has been president of the Gulf Coast, and she's just an awesome lady. So, I mean, I'll say that Monday night, you know, I would certainly hope that we would support her.
You want to keep that on,
I'd make it separate.
make it separate, okay? 6H, the board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. Number one, the radio tower project. Any questions? Can we move that to consensus? 6I, the board will consider approving the granting of an easement and temporary construction easement to Harris County for the purpose of road construction and drainage improvements at the intersection of Grant Road and Malcolmson Road at Hamilton Middle School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions on that? Can we move that to consensus? 6J, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to Municipal Utility District number 239 for water services to the elementary school number 56, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions? Can we move that to consensus? All right. Item 6K, the board will consider approving the interlocal agreement between SCOA West, LP, and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD for landscaping, irrigation, sidewalk, and lighting improvements within the designated landscape easements at the following locations: Postma Elementary School, Rennell Elementary School, and Anthony Middle School. Are there any questions? Okay, can we move this to consensus also? 6L, the district will consider a level 4 appeal of a level 3 decision of M. Abraham. I think we'll discuss this in closed session. And also, item 6M, the district will consider a level 4 appeal of a level 3 decision, J. Riley. This will also be in closed session. May we have, well, we need to do the training portion. That's Monday. Right? That's Monday, okay. May we have a motion to go in closed session?
I so move.
Any discussion? All those in favor of going into closed session for items 6L and 6M? All right. We will do that. Thank you for your attendance tonight. We will now go into closed session for these appeals of the level 4 hearings on Abraham and Riley. No decision will be made tonight. It will take place on Monday night at our board meeting. Thank you for your attendance.